Hello everyone, I'm Rachel Patterson. I'm here today to share with you a little bit of information about the magic of bread. I'm also going to take you through making your own simple bloomer loaf. So bread is one of the first baked food products, apparently dating back to the Neolithic era, which is about 8,000 years ago, give or take. Leavened bread was made in Egypt around 4000 BC, when the basic diet then was bread, onions, and beer. Bread is a basic mixture of flour, water, salt, and yeast, to which all sorts of extra ingredients can be added. Yeast is alive, so a loaf carries the energy of life within it. The bread will also carry with it the particular energies of the grain that was used to make it, whether that's wheat, barley, rye, or various other types. Bread is excellent to use in ritual to honour deity and to ground after any kind of energy work. Don't leave your loaf lying upside down, just in case you might. Folklore says it will attract negative energies. Bread has magical properties. It will depend on the grain, but all breads are good for offerings and grounding. They're all representative of the element of earth, and they all have feminine energies. But if we look at wheat, because it is the one that most breads are made of, the magical properties of wheat are prosperity, rebirth, abundance, and wishes. Ruled by the planet Venus, the element of earth, and with very feminine energies. Wheat is one of the 7 sacred grains, and it is a symbol of the harvest, the mother goddess, and the bounty the earth provides for us. So let's have a look at making a simple white bloomer loaf. The important thing to remember about bread is that it likes to be warm when it's proving. Don't be frightened of giving it a try. Once you get the hang of it, it is very straightforward. Also check that the yeast you're using is within the use by date, because if it isn't, it ain't gonna work. So the ingredients for this simple bloomer loaf are 500 grams, which is 17.5 ounces of strong white bread flour, plus you'll need a little bit more for dusting the surface. 1 tablespoon of quick, easy dried yeast, 2 teaspoons of salt. That might sound like a lot, but it does give the loaf flavour. You will notice it if you leave it out. 2 tablespoons of olive oil, plus a little more for the bowl. You can use other oils, vegetable oil, rapeseed oil. Bear in mind that some of them will affect the flavour though. 300 millilitres or 10.5 fluid ounces of water. The equipment you'll need: baking tray to bake the loaf on, small roasting tin or dish. That will become, the meaning of that will become prevalent in a moment. Boiling water, large mixing bowl, and a wooden spoon. So you need to start with your big bowl. Put the flour into a large mixing bowl. Make sure it is strong bread flour. Bread flour has more protein, which creates a better rise and structure to the finished item. You will not get the same result from using regular plain all-purpose flour. It really does need to be strong bread flour. Then add the salt to one side of the bowl and the dried yeast to the other. I know it sounds a bit mad, but yeast doesn't like salt. It can stop it from working. And having said that, we're now going to give it a stir with the wooden spoon. So you will be mixing it together, but don't place the salt right on top of the yeast to start with, because it can kill it. Now add in your 2 tablespoons of olive oil and then your 300 ml of water. Stir it with a wooden spoon to start with, because it will be very sticky. Then once it stops looking quite so sticky, you can go in with your hands and bring it together to form a rough dough. Just make sure it's cleaning the edge of the bowl and you've picked up all of the flour. And then you turn it out. Make sure you've lightly floured the surface that you're turning it out to, otherwise it will stick to it. Don't add too much flour though, because you will change the structure of the loaf. Now you need to put the work in. It needs to be kneaded, and it will take about 10 minutes. If you've got an electric mixer or food processor that's got a dough hook, you can use that, and it will take about 5 minutes. The thing with using an electric mixer is that you don't get the feel of the dough, and you can over knead it. So if you're using your hands, then you can get the feel of the dough. And here's how you do it. There are various techniques, but this is the basic one. What you're trying to do is stretch the threads of gluten. So you hold one end of the dough and stretch the other end out with your hand. Then you fold it back over. Bring the top edge back over to meet the bottom. And then squish it down. And then you start again. You repeat the process. Stretch the dough out again, bring it back, fold it over, squish it down, stretch the dough out. Literally continue the process, and it will take between 5 and 10 minutes. But keep working the dough until it's no longer sticky. And what you're actually looking for is a nice, smooth dough. When you start, it will be quite lumpy and grainy. When you finish, it should be nice and smooth. Wipe the inside of a big bowl with some olive oil. I just put a few drops onto a bit of kitchen paper and wipe the inside of the bowl and pop the dough in the bottom. The oil will stop the dough from sticking to the sides of it as it rises. And now you're going to prove it. So you need to cover it with a cloth or a cling wrap. Leave it in a room. Leave it at room temperature for 1 to 2 hours. Probably leaning more towards the 2 hours. It needs to prove slowly. If you are in a hurry, you can put it in a warm place, such as an airing cupboard, but proving it too quickly can affect the taste and texture of the finished loaf. If it's a really cold day, I have been known to put it near a radiator, not right on top, but near it, because it does need that little bit of warmth to prove. And the dough's ready once it has at least doubled in size. Should be able to see how far it's come up the side of the bowl and whether it's actually doubled. If it hasn't, leave it for a bit longer. And now you need to knock it back, which seems like a completely bonkers thing to do. Once you've spent all that time proving it, you're now going to squish it all again, but it needs it. So tip it out of the bowl onto a floured surface again and fold the dough in on itself 7 or 8 times. What you're trying to do is pop any of the large air bubbles that are in it. And then shape it. Shape the dough into a circle or an oval, whatever takes your fancy, and place it on a baking sheet. At this point, if you want to, you can slice an image or a shape into the top with a sharp knife. Could be just a symbol, pentagram, pentacle, could be a sigil of some kind. You can add magic to your loaf at this point by drawing a symbol on it, but you will need to use a sharp knife to do it with. Now you've got to prove it again. Cover it with a cloth, leave it at room temperature for a further hour. It won't double in size again, but it will puff up a little bit more. About 10-15 minutes before the end of the hour, preheat your oven. Then place a small roasting pan in the bottom of the oven and fill it with boiling water. This will create steam within your oven and it gives the loaf a really nice crust. Take the cloth off, put the baking tray in the oven and cook it 30 to 35 minutes. Don't be frightened to leave it in to get a nice dark brown colour on the top. That's what makes the nice crust. To check if it's done, pick the loaf up, turn it upside down and tap the bottom. It should sound hollow when it's baked. And then take it out off of the tray and allow it to cool. There are options that you can use with this simple recipe. The dough can be made into any shape and that includes separating the dough into 3 equal parts. You could then plait it. You could make it into a wreath shape. The dough can also be baked in a loaf tin, or you can separate it into 4 or 6 equal parts and make it into rolls, although the rolls will take slightly less time to bake. Before it goes into the oven, you can sprinkle the top with poppy or sesame seeds. You can also use a different type of oil. Sesame oil works well instead of olive oil to give it a different flavor profile. You can also add in a tablespoon of dried herbs, whatever takes your fancy, really. Thyme works well, even seeds, cumin seeds work really well as well. But do that after the first proof, because adding anything to your dough initially will take even longer to prove. So wait till you've done the first proof and then work your herbs into it.